Hello everyone, welcome back to yet another KalOnline guide with my mission to prepare any new players to the game. This video in particular, as you will have seen by the title of the video, is about enhancing, which is often called pimping by players. Not sure many of them understand what that word means when English is a second language. Anyway, so in Kal you have 5 pieces of armor and a weapon, unless you're a knight, in which case you have access to a shield as well, which counts as a piece of armor for the most part when it comes to the rules of enhancing, except for a bead of fire, which we'll learn about in a little bit. Finally, classes can equip 3 accessories. This is something that can change as some servers add a necklace. But for now, 3 accessories are a trinket, a belt, and a ring. These can all be enhanced with Talismans of Wonder, or TOW, which can add up to 5 points of a specific attribute, and are the most straightforward enhancing you can do. Before we move on to enhancing your gear, I will first mention that all pieces of gear have endurance, except for the accessories, which requires using a normal fixing tool to actually improve the thing. This is just something you buy from a NPC, so it's easy. You repair it by 1 each turn with a normal fixing tool, so not too much of an issue. When you fail most enhancement attempts, you usually lose 5 endurance, except for mixing, which seems to have a somewhat random scale. For this reason, you need to be careful, especially with some pieces of gear that only have 10 endurance to start with in the first place. So yeah, you don't want to fail twice in a row there. Another thing worth mentioning is that some enhancements can destroy your gear upon failing without even thinking about endurance. So you'll need to protect them using an item called a polishing stone that protects your item from destruction and endurance loss. I'll get into what types of enhancements need this polishing stone as we go. So let's start with your weapon. There are a few different ways to improve your weapon, starting with Talisman of Attack or Magic if you're a mage. These can be bought from merchants and improve your weapon attack stat. Each success adds +1 upgrade, so if you succeed 10 talismans, your weapon will be +10. Your first weapon probably is worth pushing past clean with no enhancements is G48, but you won't go too crazy until maybe like G53, where you might start to push to +13 or higher, especially if the rate is low like Bango will be. Now, adding Talismans of Attack or Magic is one of the few ways you can destroy a weapon. This risk becomes possible once your weapon is at +4, and then you attempt to go to +5. However, usually you're safe to fail once attempting that +5, but you do have a high chance, to succeed +5, like 90+%, so you probably get it. If you do fail, though, make sure you use a polishing, but certainly after +5, just use a polishing stone to be sure, to ensure every attempt is protected and your weapon doesn't blow up. Next, we'll talk about Explosive Blow, or EB for short. EB is paired with your Talisman of Attack or Magic level, and also increases by levels of 1, and cannot exceed the level of Attack or Magic. So basically, if your weapon is +13 attack, you cannot exceed that level of EB. So you couldn't have +13 attack and 14 EB, right? 13 is the highest. Explosive Blow is a type of improvement to your weapon that applies a bonus amount of damage. This damage is triggered on a % chance, so both damage and the chance of success increases with the level of EB. It's also worth noting that the damage scaling of EB scales correctly and increases by weapon grade, whereas Talisman of Attack and Magic bonuses, they don't improve by weapon grade. In order to improve EB, you'll need to use an item called a Stone of Revision to get your chance to succeed up to 100% of the blacksmith. You could go lower than that, but it's just not worth the risk. Some Stones of Revision are created by purposely or otherwise destroying your gear. To destroy gear, again, you just go to the blacksmith. There'll be an option for it. As you can see by the footage here, you'll want to use Stones of Revision to improve your chance to succeed to 100%, as I said earlier. This is so you don't take any chances, as polishing stones do not save your weapon here. So you need to make sure that's 100%. It's just not worth the risk. And then once you're at 100%, you swap to the option to apply Explosive Blow. Next, we'll talk about Talisman of Accuracy. Now, if you're a mage, you don't need Talisman of Accuracy. You can completely ignore it, as mages cannot miss. So you don't need accuracy. But for everyone else, Talisman of Accuracy do what you will expect, which is they improve your on-target point, which is what's referred to as KalOnline instead of accuracy. You have Talisman of Accuracy, but then it's labeled on target points, so just to give you that piece of information, or OTP. Talisman of Accuracy don't go as high as Talisman of Attack, so it's like +5 or 6 would be considered very high. For TOAs, it's +1 is guaranteed, and then after that it can fail, so the first one is guaranteed and safe, but after that you could fail, so you want to use polishing stones here again to protect your weapon. Next up for weapons, we move on to what's called Talisman of Intensification, or TOIs for short. These do not require polishing stones, but you will need to repair your endurance, so don't let it get too low. It needs to be at least 6 or higher, but I wouldn't even let it get that low personally. TOIs add a large number of stats to your weapon, typically a variation of attribute points and straight hit point gains. The best TOIs will not be achievable early game, but you might still find some decent ones like Decisional, Steely, or Distinct. The best TOI in the game is Kings, which you will want on all high grade weapons, with the next best thing being Legendary. Our final note on weapons comes from mixing, which comes in two forms, Imperial and mixing stones themselves. Making a weapon Imperial transforms its appearance and improves its stats, most notably its damage. You will need to do this at the Pub of the Giant Bird, a town which you can use /bird to teleport to in Bango. To Imperial your weapon, you can use any 2 mixing stones and check the list for what you'll need, which will always be a weapon, which will be lower grade than the weapon you're using most of the time, except for like G48 and stuff like that, and a piece of armor. Your weapon doesn't blow up on failure as long as you keep the endurance up, but remember from what I said earlier that you can lose more than 5 durability, unlike other enhancements. Next up, we have the mixing stones themselves as upgrades. The process is extremely similar to Imperial, except that you need only 1 stone, except for when you go for a G3, but we'll get into that in a second. There are a wide variety of stones to choose from, but largely for G1 and G2 mixing, the most useful stone is Stone of Strength, which gives you 10% of your total HP at G1 and 20% at G2. Although it does actually minus your MP, so just worth noting. Because of this, Stone of Strength is actually probably going to be the most expensive type of stone on the market that you can find. A nice trick though is that you can switch the stone type. So let's say you have like G1 Stone of Ice, you can then move from that G1 Stone of Ice to G2 Stone of Strength when you apply to go for G2 with a Stone of Strength. So you don't have to go Stone of Strength G1, Stone of Strength G2. After that, we have G3, which you can go for after you have G2, using either a Mystery Stone or a Demon's Blood Stone. Here, as I said earlier, you'll need 2 of those types of stones. So if you're going for mystery, you'll need 2 types of mystery stones, or you'll need 2 mystery stones or 2 demon's blood. Those are the only 2 types. Finally, let's move on to armor. The types of upgrades here are Talisman of Defense, Talisman of Protection, and Beat of Fire. Let's start with TODs. These need polishing stones after your first guaranteed success, so basically like Talisman of Accuracy. Typically +5 would be like the highest you'd probably push a piece of armor at the more end game gear. Next are Talisman of Protection, which adds stats not unlike Talisman of Intensification, but unlike those, there is no single like best in slot for all classes, so there's kind of choice and variety of what to choose. Finally, we have Beat of Fire. Starting with G46 armor, you can equip it with BOFs. They add attribute points, which increase as you move from G46, which provides 1 attribute point, then G50 provides 2, and so on and so on. These include set bonuses, one for having BOF the same grade of gear with shoes, legs, and gloves, because BOF sets have to have you have to have full G46 to have the set bonus, for example, or full G50. Then you can get a bigger set bonus for having the chest and the helmet as well, and then you complete the full set. You will also get an effect around your character depending on which set bonus you've completed. That about wraps it up. I hope this guide is helpful, and feel free to reference it when you're ready to journey through Bango. More guides are coming, so stay tuned.